Hi everyone, my name is Émilie Daou and I'm going to be debating against Alexandra Laplante about a controversial subject that is, should Quebec separate from Canada, or in other words, should Quebec become a country of its own? Several issues come into play like language, the economy, the geography, the values, and many others. It is a highly debated question in Canada and everyone seems to have their own opinion on it because Quebec is a really important part of the country. My position on the question about whether or not Quebec should become a country apart from Canada is of course not. I think we should stay like we are right now as one big, powerful, and united country rather than becoming a separate one. To reply on what Miss Laplante said in her first argument, of course, our French language is really important as it's part of our culture, but here in Quebec, we have the particularity to accept a lot of immigrants coming from everywhere around the globe. That being said, it's not a big enough argument to explain why we should become a country because there's a really big variety of cultures in the city of Montreal, for example, and we still manage to keep our language up and going for the most part. So I don't see why being a country would change anything for the better because we would accept just as many immigrants and our situation wouldn't get any different language-wise. We would still have to face the difficulty of keeping French language as the primary language. For my first argument, I'm personally a believer that we are much stronger together as a team rather than separated into one big chunk being the rest of the Canada and then us, a little left out piece alone, Quebec. If we talk about economics or even national relations, I don't think we could survive as a country because we're known and recognized as part of Canada and we wouldn't have the same power or presence or even the same amounts of money if we were to separate from the big guy. You see, what I mean is, if we want to keep the respect of the other big influential countries like the US or the Russia or even China, we can't be seen as the little rebellious part of the big whole because that would kill pretty much all of our power, influence, and our economy. International trade is an important part of what gives us our name as being an important country in the world, and we can't lose that because that would also mean losing millions of dollars. Of course, we can't always be pleased by the government leading us or decisions taken by it, but in 2019, we, Quebec, managed to have the best economic performance in Canada, which proves that we are powerful within the country, being part of it. Separating from it would certainly affect that performance in many ways because it gives us many advantages to be part of the Canada. As for my second argument, I want to talk mainly about resources and ease of movement overall. Being part of Canada gives us the advantage of being able to use the resources produced all over the country like petrol, wood, hydroelectricity, wind turbines, or any kind of factory and workforce we could need. Also, in times of war or conflicts, we would benefit from the Canadian Army. Therefore, it would be a big disadvantage to separate from Canada and only be content with what is left here. It would also make any kind of trade between Quebec and Canada much harder for nothing, also considering that we would probably be separated by a border, which complicates things on another level for trades and traveling. That's what I would call useless complications that we would put upon ourselves. In conclusion, of course, I understand why certain people might be in favor of this separation, like the language, for instance, and that's why it's still being debated. There are pros and cons to the question, but the cons definitely weigh much more than the pros, hence the reason why Quebec is still part of Canada today. One thing I can't wrap around my head though is why people would want the hardest option that comes with so many consequences when there is an easy answer with minimal damages. Our economy, our workforce, our liberty of movement, our resources, our safety, they would all go to trash if we were to separate from Canada, and I don't think it's worth the tiny wins we would get in exchange. Thank you a lot for your times, and here is my source that I used.